It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
So folks, in the greater Hazleton area, we have an organization called H.I.P. That's H.I.P. What does it stand for? Hazleton Integration Project. And it was started, the idea started around 2010, but for those of you who are watching us in Allentown, Bethlehem, and Harrisburg, and Scranton, first of all, thank you for tuning us in. We are going to talk about H.I.P. One of the people who really made this happen, along with other people, is Joe Maddon. And for you, those of you who know Joe Maddon, he is from Hazleton and always been proud to be from Hazleton. And he is the manager of the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, he didn't listen to my advice this year. He would have been in the World Series. But however, he's here today to talk about the great achievements of H.I.P. Joe, thanks for coming on the show again.
Thank you for the advice.
And of course, Bob Curry, folks, if you don't know who he is, he's the president of H.I.P. This organization, it just continues, Joseph, to amaze me what can be done when people work together and have positive attitudes. The creation of this H.I.P., you said it started around 2010. Well, how did this whole thing start? For those people who are not familiar how this thing started.
With a thought, like most situations or organizations begin. I came back to visit for Christmas around 2010 with my wife Jay, and we were just driving around town and watching everything, and I really was upset with the appearance of the town, the obvious fear within the town, the lack of trust within the town, and the adversarial component, also the crime going, all those things were obvious, especially because I'm not here all the time. So I got on the airplane, flew back to Long Beach, and I don't know if it was that night or the next day, I called Bob and Elaine Curry, and I said, listen, we got to do something about this. While we were here, I went and I attended a daycare center, and when I walked into this daycare center, it was really obvious to me that this group of people is no different than the group that you and I come from. Back in the day when our grandparents arrived, when our parents grew up, this large family, really family-oriented, got together on Sundays and weekends and was very closely knit. And eventually, you're sitting here today, and I have a chance to be the manager of the Tampa Bay Rays. So all this stuff, and again, I could go on and on, but those were the driving components. I drove up and down downtown Broad Street, and I was really disappointed. Look at it today. I mean, I come back today, and I can't believe how wonderful this place looks in just a couple years. So anyway, the thought was, how do you help integrate? How do you help bring the folks together? So we talked about a community center, getting that running. Got the old MPB building up 4th Street. We got that rolling right now, and it's going great. So it was a thought. It's about bringing folks together. It's about building trust within the community, and it's having people breaking some barriers down where some folks, and I grew up here too, breaking down the barriers of non-communication, trying to increase the trust that flows back and forth. Those are the things that we have to get done in order to make this city as wonderful as it had been many years ago.
So when you started this idea, and Bob, you know, you guys grasped it together and start working with this, you certainly always come across some controversy, okay? And, you know, if I had to live with controversy, I mean, when I started this, people said I was out of my mind. He never succeeded with local news, and who the hell is Sam Lesante, okay? And I just kept working hard at it, and we just kept on striving, and we went to the people and asked them to look what we're doing, and thank God today, you know, we're doing okay. And I use that, as you said, analogy. I told you my grandfather was thrown out of a bank because he couldn't speak Italian, and it broke his heart, okay? And he was very proud to be here in America. He couldn't speak English that well. And that was something I'll never forget. I could see that vision today, Joe and Bob. Sure. My grandfather's face, tears coming down his face. Okay, so with that in mind, you had some controversy, but not as much. And then Joe comes in and puts his money where his mouth is and begins to proceed. What have you seen since H.I.P has started?
Well, there's no question there's a difference in attitude. When we first started, there was certainly a swell of negativity about just about everything that we got involved with, and you can see it. You know, people are commenting on it, but now everything we do, we're really greeted in a very different way. We see more and more businesses, in particular in the area, who understand the significance of bringing an entire community together for economic reasons. And then sociologically, you also see social service organizations, education organizations, police, legislative, everybody pulling together, getting behind our effort and other similar efforts to move the community together. I mean, every one of us understands at this point in time, the people involved in our project, and I think most community leaders are going to put the idea forth that if we're going to move ahead as a community, it's going to be all together. It's going to be arm in arm. And as Joe points out, this new immigration is identical to that of our forefathers. It doesn't matter what your ethnic background is. You could come from Polish background, Irish background, or in our case, the Italian background. But all of these groups, when they came here, have a history of immigration, a history of problems when they first get here, and then look how it works out.
And when you started, you started the program, and Joe, you every time you come in, you're always up there looking at what's going on. What are you seeing, and how proud are you at this particular point in time?
Well, when you walk, just walk and see what's going on at the building itself physically, even outside. The steps are being redone. So right from the steps as you walk in the door, the new concrete's being laid. You walk inside and the elevator shafts are going up to make it more handicap accessible from in the corner of the gymnasium. Walk down the hallway, there's like 30 new Apple computers in one room for this computer center for the kids. Incredible. You walk downstairs and see our cafeteria. Beautifully done, very efficient. The kitchen itself, self-sufficient, efficient, and really a wonderful place for everybody to gather for something to eat. Right outside of that is a new boxing program. There's just one room, it's a Taekwondo room that's dedicated to boxing also, which I witnessed the other day. It was absolutely floored by the intensity of the workout and the focus of the kids, and the instructor, Tim Witherspoon, really, I mean, I've been in sports my whole life, and that one moment really, really got me, just seeing how that was useful and helpful regarding the kids and the youth in our area. You walk upstairs in the classroom space. Listen, people, come on down and check it out yourselves. It's right there. It's at the MPB school right next to the church. Come and see for yourself. Walk in, especially those that have a little trepidation about what we're trying to do. Understand one thing, it's about kids. Whenever you're going to denigrate a project that's built around making kids better, providing opportunity for kids, really check yourself in at the door and find out what you're really thinking about here, because if you're against that, I have no idea what you would be possibly for.
And it's so true. Every time I go up there, Eugenia will say, "Come on, I'm going to show you." So I go in there and I see these kids playing and working together, and it's Spanish, whites, you name it. It's everyone mixed, and it's encouraging because these kids are learning how to work together, live together, and make a town grow. And that's what we need. I mean, you just need it, Joe.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think that's again when Bob speaks so well, and he was touching about all the surface stuff that's going on there. But at the end of the day, how could you be against providing opportunity for children? Our city right now has an entirely different makeup regarding who's here as compared to 50 or 100 years ago. And that's fine. And it's going to be, 50 years from now, it's going to be entirely different once again. The group that is here, primarily Hispanic, are here to make our city better, make it work. Understand one thing, they want to be here. A lot of folks have left. These guys want to be here. They want to be here because it's a better place for their kids, educationally, for them, employment-wise, just opportunity in general. A piece of the great American dream is here for them, just like it had been for people in the past. So at the end of the day, I mean, until there's a trust component built up between the people that had been here and the folks that are coming in, it's going to always have this little bit of a disconnect or pushback coming from both sides. We need to continue to work on establishing trust, build relationships on both sides. Once that occurs, then at that point you're going to see this city really take off once again and really attract, whether it's businesses, the arts, culture, anything you could possibly think of that makes a city thrive, we'll be able to attract. But it's not going to happen until we come together. And the idea of pushing apart to me is really foreign, because where I come from and what I do, the primary objective is to bring people together. So for the group in Hazleton that are detractors, if you want to see our city thrive again, understand it's important for you to get out and support this and understand your neighbors and build the relationships and trust. And at that point, you're going to see our city thrive again.
And if I can, I want to jump in because this is something that you and I have discussed before in previous shows, and I think Joe echoes all the time as well. It's no coincidence that we selected children as the basis through which most of the programming occurs in our center. It's not exclusively, but by far the vast majority of what we do is geared towards children. And as we say, children have no prejudice. Right. You get a group of kids together, 2-year-olds, they don't even recognize skin color. Right. And yet, as they grow, what we see, and it's so evident, and this is why, again, please, if you're a detractor, and even if you're not, you just want to see what we're doing in the center, it is truly exciting. Come on down, see what's going on in that center. Because even when we get to junior high school and high school kids, they don't care. They don't care one bit. How good is your jump shot?
There you go.
If you got a good jump shot, you're on my team.
Yeah.
And that's what we see, and that's what needs to be that's what we need to proceed with as a community, as our center, but everybody together reading from the same sheet of music, as Joe is fond of saying. But we understand.
Joe, I want to ask you a question. You know, I worked very closely with Jack Palance for many, many years. I always say he was like a second father to me. But I remember Jack, he had a love for this area and had a home here. I mean, he was in California. But when he would bring fellow actors in, you know, and many times we would have them down in the valley. Many people knew who wasn't here, Elizabeth Taylor, Sean Young. When they came into this area with Jack and they would look at the area, they were amazed how great this area is. Mm-hmm. Now, my question is this. You brought a lot of interesting sports people into town, many fundraisers, etc. When you brought these people in, Yogi Berra, whatever, when you brought them in, what kind of reaction did you get from? Because sometimes they'll talk to you off the cuff. Joe, let me tell you, it sucked, it was great, but what kind of reaction you get, Joe?
First of all, they love the people. I mean, every time, whether it was Yogi or Zim, like Larry Bowa's been here in the past, Larry Bowa, Eddie Randall comes in, Kim Jones comes in, Kenny Rosenthal's been here, Carlos Pena, Gino, and this year we're going to have Orlando Cepeda, Tommy Lasorda's coming this year. I promise you, the first thing that makes an impression on all these folks are the people, and how kind they are, and how accessible, and how open, and all wonderful. I mean, that's the first thing that strikes it. When I went to college at Lafayette, my friends wanted to come here on weekends, and Beanie would take care of them. We'd camp out, and you'd have something to eat. You could go to the warm-up or to the all these other different places in town, Shenanigans at that time. There was something for you to do at night. There's nothing for these kids to do. But, I mean, the folks that I bring in are really impressed with the people first, and then second of all, our cause. They really dig the cause, and that's why it's easy to ask these people and give them some information regarding what we're doing, and they say, I'm in. I mean, almost immediately, I'm in. Let me check my schedule. No, I'm in. Orlando Cepeda, who was my idol as a kid growing up, I talked to Orlando Cepeda on the phone about coming here. Yes, I definitely will be. Louis Tiant, that was here last year. So they come here, and they love what we're doing. They understand it. But primarily the thing that makes the greatest and first impression, what you would think would be our folks here. And
it's ditto when Jack would bring this, and sometimes we're our own worst enemies, and we don't even know it sometimes.
Well, I mean, again, you know, having grown up here and then having left, I understand the sequestered feeling here and the protective feeling of being within the confines of the parameters of being a Hazletonian or in this area and having grown up here and how protective we are, and I get that. But at some point, you have to expand your borders a little bit. You have to expand your mind a little bit. A mind once stretched has a very difficult time going back to its original form. Mm-hmm. So as the people in this area, our brothers and sisters here, expand your minds. Permit your minds to be expanded. And I promise you to go back to the way you had been thinking will be nearly impossible. To bring these different people from different cultures in and have you be able to come down to our event, shake hands, listen to them speak, and understand where they come from and how wonderful they are also. Louis Tiant, born in Cuba. Orlando Cepeda, Puerto Rican. I'm going to have Chris Archer come up this year, a young black kid from the Rays. Wait to hear this guy talk. This different ethnic backgrounds, these different racial backgrounds, wonderful people. Open your minds, open your hearts, and let's expand our minds. And I promise you, we can make this place, Hazleton, the one place that everybody looks as a model for growth in the years to come.
And folks, that's the truth. Thousands of kids are going there every month. We're going to come back, talk to Joe a little bit more, and there's a lot of activities happening at that. Now, once again, folks, for those of you who are wondering what this H.I.P project is, I would encourage you to go to the website, which is HazletonIntegrationProject.com. and you'll learn a lot more about this. And as Joe said, and Bob said, it could be a good model. We're on the right road here, folks. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. Remember, 24/7, every one of my shows that we've been producing for the years is on the website. Just go to ssptv.com, click shows, and all the other shows, the girls. And folks, let me just say this. Thank you so much. The recent survey we did a couple of months ago showing the Sam Lesante Show in the markets we're in, over 165,000 people watching the show every week. I appreciate that very much and appreciate the nice comments. My email, sam@ssptv.com. Today, my guest today, Joe Maddon, manager of the Tampa Bay Rays, and Bob Curry, who is president of the H.I.P organization. That's Hazleton Integration Project. They've been on. It's a role model, folks. For those of you who are just listening in, it's very interesting. Joe has been dedicated to this and brought many, many people into this area, helping thousands of kids. Bob, activities are always going on. Eugenia is always busy. You are always busy.
Yep.
Tell me what's happening in December.
Well, in December, we have two events this year, which are occurring back to back. We have one of the greatest men ever to play baseball, Cal Ripken. Well,
Okay.
no, he's just the greatest manager.
Okay, all right.
But Cal Ripken is going
Wow.
to come in,
Wow.
and he's got an announcement concerning his, support for the Hazleton Integration Project. And so we're going to have an event with Cal Ripken, and that's December 18th, Thursday, and then Friday, December 19th, we have Tommy Lasorda, as Joe mentioned, Orlando Cepeda, Chris Archer. We've got Kim Jones coming back. I'm not quite sure who's going to MC this year, but we've just got a whole host of people coming in. And we have these sports banquets. People respond so well. If you want more information, please call us at 570-861-8081. Please get your reservations early because there are not going to be any, not with this lineup.
And here again, Bob and Joe, it's indicative how these people, you said, you call them and they come in here and they're just to help, show their support of what this is all about.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's almost immediate too. I don't have to really sell very hard. I've talked to different guys. There's other guys that are really interested. Jose Bautista with the Toronto Blue Jays have shown a strong affinity to wanting to get involved. Also, different different guys throughout the game. And I'm working on John Kruk. John, if you're watching, I'm still working on you. I mean, there's different guys I'm working on out there to get them to come on up. Jim Palmer was already committed for next year. I've already gotten Jimmy for next year. So there's, and every time you talk to them about what we're doing specifically, they get excited. They get excited very quickly. There's no pushback. They get it. They understand this is what needs to be done. So all these guys from different walks want to be here, want to participate. Kenny Rosenthal called the other day. He wants to be back in. Tim Kirkchen is in this year. I mean, these guys are in already this year, and they want to come back. So it's really exciting. And again, I know in the beginning sometimes there's always this trepidation, these concerns, and again, the pushback because without the trust. But I'm telling you, within the next couple of years, you look at the growth already that's occurred. Within the next couple of years, it's going to be amazing.
You need another building.
Well, it's
Joe,
exactly right.
Let me ask you a question. I spent a lot of time with Jack Palance, my wife Debbie, and Elaine when we did a national TV show. And when we would be at different places, and someone like in California where it's Spagos, and people come up and ask Jack, where are you from? And he would say, where are you from? When people come up to you and they ask you, Joe, where are you from? Okay, and tell me what this organization that you're involved with, what do you say to them?
I always say I'm from Hazleton, Pennsylvania. It's in northeastern Pennsylvania, coal regions. I always go with that explanation immediately. And when they asked me about they asked me about this particular project, and I talked to them about, listen, when I was a kid growing up here, there was only one black kid in town, and that was Greg Palmer.
Yeah. At
that time, we called him Midnight. Actually, Greg Palmer was the only black kid in town. Otherwise, the minorities were the Polacks versus the Italians versus the Jews versus the Irish. But depends on what part of town you lived in. And so we didn't see all that different, like Bob had talked about. We didn't see color or whatever. Anyway, talk about now where we're almost 50% Hispanic in our hometown. And of course, obviously that's going to present some issues, some problems culturally, and misunderstanding and pushback and whatever. But what I talk to them about is I say, listen, the thing I think that people in our area don't understand is that if we don't accept and don't embrace and don't utilize and bring everybody together, the folks that want to be here, then eventually our town was going to die. That was I was seeing it right before my very eyes. So I talked to them about the whole point We're not saying immigration, we're talking integration project, bringing people together, again, getting everybody on the same sheet of music, pull from the same end of the rope, and it's not only here, it's throughout the entire country. The moment you get people with some common goals, and of course you're not always going to agree, so that's okay. At the end of the day, at least have a discussion, come to some conclusions, and then eventually work on those agreed upon components. But don't constantly just repel any kind of conversation and not want to even attempt to understand the other side. That's the part, that's where it really becomes to the point where it can never actually work. So I told them, this is where we're trying to get people on the same page. We want to embrace and utilize the folks that want to be here, who happen to be primarily Hispanic right now, and I'm all for. Growing up, my first roommate in pro ball was Richard Thon, Dickie Thon, Puerto Rican, blonde hair, blue eyes, got off the plane in Central California, and I started talking to him in English. He started speaking back to me in Spanish, and it blew me away.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you think this will become contagious throughout the country?
I totally do. And listen, whenever I do things, I tend to have like grandiose plans or thoughts.
No, not Joe Maddon.
You know, so the point was to do it here, it's just the perfect place to do it.
Oh, yes.
Because it's confined. It's not this huge metropolitan area. We have this kind of confined area or space to really work on this with a kind of a finite group of people. So if we could nail it down here, when we nail it down here, I think larger areas, larger cities, larger communities are going to look to us to what did you do there and how did you get this done and what should we look for and where do we need to begin and all this kind of stuff. And I want us to be that. I want us to be that group that people want to come and see how do you do it, teach us how to do this, and then eventually get all these little subplots working within the area, around the area, and then it eventually circles out. So
you said something, Joe. You said you should go up there and do a show with Tim Witherspoon,
Yeah.
you know, the boxing. And what, you know, I'm just thinking, Bob, the next show that I like to do is I like to come up and go on location, Sam Lesante show, up there, and talk to the kids and talk to the, you know, and show what's, so the viewers could see for themselves, okay? And you could talk to some of these kids and the parents and all kinds and see what they really means. Because, Joe, we could talk about it, and if they go to the website, they'll say, but going there and seeing what's actually happening.
Absolutely, because the squeaky wheel always gets the most grease and the most coverage in the newspapers and on TV. The bad ones, the criminals, the people that are causing the most problems. You go up there and you're going to see the most respectful, pleasant, bright young people that you've never met, and it's going to take you back to Our Lady of Grace or MPB or St. Stan's or St. Joe's, and the way those kids and how we had to act back then, because otherwise Beanie would come up behind you and give you a little bit of a smack in the back of the head. So these kids are totally disciplined, wonderful, bright, wide-eyed, and want to learn.
You think the kids are going back teaching their parents something or their relatives something of what they've learned, Bob?
I don't think there's any question that what we do, again, if you start with the children, and these kids get along so well, and you can see it. You see it every day through all of these programs, everything that's happening. And then you go back home and your parents telling you something else, there's a disconnect there. And I know so many of these children are going back to try to bridge that gap with their parents.
I got to tell you an interesting story before I get a break. I was moving some things from my father-in-law's home. We're just maybe doing some things, and the other, I was up there, and there's three beautiful girls standing out there, Spanish girls, and they had to be maybe 12, 9, and 8. And the girl said, "Hi." She said, "How are you?" I said, "I'm fine." And she said, "You're that man I see on television." I said, "Yeah." She said, "Do you need any help?" You know. And I said, "Well, thank you very much." She said, "Really?" She said, "We'll help you carry some things, and we're just moving some things around." And I said, "What? Isn't that beautiful? You know, it's a beautiful little girl, you know, just asking you for help. Very, very nice." I see what you're talking about. Folks, I'm talking to Joe Maddon, manager of the Tampa Bay Rays. Hey, folks, I tried to give him advice, but he didn't listen to me. But he did all right this year. And, of course, Bob Curry, who's the president of H.I.P. Folks, I highly advise, if you're not that familiar with us, those people who are watching different areas, go to Hazleton Integration Project. That's HazletonIntegrationProject.com. It's on the screen. Phone number 570-861-8081. When we come back, I have to ask Joe Maddon a personal question about baseball. Once again, I'm going to give him advice. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. My guest, Joe Maddon, manager of the Tampa Bay Rays, and Bob Curry, who is president of H.I.P organization here in town. Joe, I want to ask you a question. We know you love managing the Tampa Rays, and they love you. However, it is to be frustrating because of the poor attendance, the team caps on payrolls, not being able to keep high-priced players. If somehow, someday, the opportunity to manage a big market team arises, would you at least consider it before you retire?
Well, I mean, first of all, let me just talk about the Rays. We have great ownership. I mean, anytime you're thinking about moving somewhere else or staying at a particular place, think about who you work for and with. And that, to me, is the most important thing that happens. See, the thing with the Tampa Bay Rays is our infrastructure is so fabulous, the people that I work for. And it's almost like it's like a laboratory. I'm permitted to do all the crazy things that I want to do. So it goes beyond wanting to go to a big market or make more money. You have to have some kind of a satisfaction or wanting to work in a particular place, just like you love being here. So in order to even consider going somewhere else, I think you'd have to get to the point where you feel like you've reached a saturation point, where maybe nobody's listening anymore, maybe your message is not being heard. It might just be the time to move along. That's a possibility. But when it comes down to the Rays, and despite of the lack of attendance, the biggest thing there for me, the only unattractive part of that is our ballpark. Everything else is highly, other than the ballpark, we have the best place in all of Major League Baseball to work. So honestly, if we were to get a ballpark and they wanted me to stay for the next 20 years, I would do it.
Now, I'm going to bring you back in history a little bit. 1971, you pitched a 4-win over Northampton to give Hazleton the district.
4-1. I hit a home run to right center in that game.
And you pitched that game.
I did.
Now, when you pitch, you need a ball to pitch, right?
Yep.
Now, I got something here, Joseph, for you.
What do you got?
This is the ball that you used to win that championship.
Are you serious?
This is a gift not only from me but from Ron Marchetti.
Oh, wow.
Okay, this is the ball, and I guess what? Believe it or not, folks, this ball was pulled out of a dumpster during the Hazleton High School auction, and this is the ball that Joe Maddon used to win the District 11
incredible.
championship. That's yours, Joseph.
Thank you
courtesy
so
of Ron
much. That's
Marchetti.
really cool, man. That's definitely going in the office right there.
Isn't that something?
It's a Spalding. It's made by Spalding, which you don't see anymore.
Yeah,
I was curious about that and what the rest of the market. Thank you very much. This is
Well, that's Ron
this
Marchetti.
is a definite keeper.
Yeah,
Oh my God!
It's something that you could. It's a good memory.
4-1, and Coach Morgan and the boys hit a home run in right center. There was no fence up; it rolled across the street. You just keep on running. Beautiful stuff, man.
Well, Joseph, it's always nice having you on my show, and
My
thanks so
pleasure.
much for what you're doing for the kids in this area. You know, you speak from the heart, and you're doing all that stuff. And believe it's going on. I know you don't want the praise, etc. And Bob's always said that, but we want to thank you what you're doing. It's really
Well, listen, I mean, I am committed to this. We are committed to this. Growing up here, I've often talked about was the best place in the world ever to grow up as a kid. And that's what we and I want for the kids that are coming up right now. I want them to be able, 20 years from now, say the same thing.
well. Keep us in mind. I'm going to go up there and do it on
That'd be
Sam
great.
Lesante show. Okay,
That'd be
Bob?
great.
You're certainly welcome anytime, Sam.
Folks, it's called the Hazleton Integration Project.com, 570-861-8081. Check it out. And for those of you in the greater Hazleton area supporting it, keep your support up. We need it. See you next time.